Here, Patricia, Albert, and Maria from Catalan Cork Institute Foundation will explain sustainability, carbon footprint, and potential products of cork. In the Model 2, the importance of cork material in relation to sustainability will be introduced. The chapter is divided into 3 sections. Cork and sustainability, conducted by Patricia. Carbon footprint of cork products, conducted by Albert. And potential uses of cork, conducted by Maria, myself. Upon completion of this model, attendants will be able to understand why cork is considered a sustainability material, to know and clarify the concept of carbon footprint and the different steps of its calculation, and to get an introduction of different uses of cork material and the characteristics that make it sustainable of the aerospace sector. So let's start.
Since the 1950s, the phenomenon of a decline in certain cork of forests has been recognized. Biotic and abiotic factors such as climate change or some human management could lead to a consistent cork of forest loss, particularly in the Mediterranean basin. For example, as a result of some practices such as clearing, grazing, or plowing for agriculture, cork oak forests are gradually transformed into open woodlands. Kim et al. 2017 suggests some hypotheses of carcass over decline. According to this study, some natural agents such as the increase of annual mean temperatures, drought periods, rainfall, extremes, or degress have been suggested to be causes of forest degradation. These environmental changes could lead to an increase of tree vulnerability to insects or pathogens and or physiological decline of the trees because the survival and the development of pathogens increase when the temperature rises in winter. This decline phenomenon is associated with an increase of in the number of trees with certain death symptoms that are related to the infection by the fungus Phytophthora cinnamoni. You can see some images about the affection of this fungus. This is an extensive dieback and mortality of carcass over trees caused by this Phytophthora cinnamoni in a plantation in Sardinia, or like this. And this is an image that you can see the aspect of the roots. Another insect that we can take into account is the presence of this beetle or Coraibus undatus, that is one of the main pests of cork oak in the Iberian Peninsula and in France. The level of the beetle infestation in cork oak forest can be recorded by observing the traces left by larval galleries in trees that have recently been striped. This is another image that you can see the larva damage in the cork oak, and this present reduces its quantity and quality. In the case of you need this cork to cork stoppers production.
Okay, let's just start with Unit 2 about carbon footprint of different cork products. We will talk about, first of all, the carbon footprint concept. It's important to know what it is. Then the importance of the forests in that process, in that carbon footprint. Then we will talk about the methodology of life cycle assessment that will permit us to calculate that carbon footprint. And then we will give some examples about the results of the carbon footprint of different cork products. Well, first of all, we are talking about cork. We're talking about forest-based material. So we have to know that there is carbon as the other natural materials. Most of the organic materials has carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen as a molecules. So into the cork also we have that molecules, and the natural materials, because they have that molecules, can obtain, or can fix carbon, oxygen, hydrogen from the atmosphere with the photosynthesis into their tissues. So this is the carbon CO2 fixation of forests, of any forest. But in the case of cork, we also have the CO2 fixed not only in all the tissues, if not in the surface, in the cork, the bark, sorry, of the cork tree. Then we will talk about the LCA, the life cycle assessment. We know that nowadays is the most appropriate methodology to calculate and quantify the degree of environmentally friendliness of a product. So why is important that kind of things, that the CO2, why is important the greenhouse gas emissions? Why is important to calculate the CO2 equivalent? Why is important the LCA? Well, as everybody knows, we are in a climatic emergency. We have a lot of compromises, different countries to reduce the emissions. So it's important. We don't need to talk about much more about that. So from time to time, we will see more usually a lot of products with their carbon footprint in order to identify the degree of sustainability of each of them. The thing is, how we calculate the carbon footprint? Through the life cycle assessment. Why is important that methodology? I would say that the most important, not only the methodology, if not the concept, that the degree of sustainability of one product is not only during their use. For example, a car is not, we cannot say that a car is sustainable just because the car don't use petrol, if not they use electricity. Well, that's a good thing, but in order to say strictly if it's sustainable or more or less sustainable than others, we have to know the whole life cycle of that product. We have to know where comes from the material, the raw material, how it's produced, okay, how it's distributed, and also very important, what we do with the product, the material at the end of use. So the whole cycle is important. And again, we can obtain with that methodology, we can obtain a number, a result, usually with CO2 equivalents or GAG, greenhouse gas quantity for product or for services, but we have to know that it could not be true. So there are certifications, there are third parties that says and that revises the methodology made by a company and says that the result is true, and they give a certification. That's important to know that there is a certification for that, and you can believe a result if there is a certification. It doesn't mean that you cannot believe certain results, but if you have a third party that says yes, independent third party, so you can maybe be more or feel that the result is true more than the other cases. Okay, so here we have just a concept. The idea is to say that we will talk the whole time with CO2 or CO2 equivalent or greenhouse gases. Doesn't matter. You just have to take into account that when we talk about CO2, it's just the simplification of different inputs and outputs and materials. It's a translation of energy, of material, etc., in a certain unit in order to compare. The unit that we will use to compare is the CO2 equivalent, and this CO2 includes all the greenhouse gases that emits the whole process. Okay. Another thing important that we see in the lesson is that we have to take into account the carbon fixation of the forest. We have to know that the forest, the natural materials with the photosynthesis retain the carbon from the atmosphere. So they are an important sink of greenhouse gases in difference with other materials, not natural materials. And for example, here we have some values just to comprehend a little what we are talking about. The amount of carbon fixed by the forest is different because there are different kinds of forest and different velocities of fixation. And we can talk about from more or less 2 tons of CO2 per hectare a year, or 14 tons of CO2, more or less. So that amount of quantity per hectare, that amount of CO2 is fixed from the forest each year. You can imagine the global amount that we're talking about. Then we will talk a little bit deep about life cycle assessment. We will you will comprehend better with that cycle. In fact, it's a cycle. We talk about design, eco-design. That's in my opinion, the most important thing in the life cycle is analysis. When you design a product, is the moment to design the product in a more sustainable way, thinking about the different currents, different materials that you need, if you can do it in a more easy way, etc. No, which products we will need, etc. So that's a life cycle analysis. For each step, we will analyze the inputs and outputs, the energy that you need, the products that come in, the wastes that come out, etc. And then we will sum up everything. Then you will see in the whole lesson different core products, sorry, and each of them has a different carbon footprint. And in the literature, we have some studies about the calculus of that carbon footprint. There are several studies with cork stoppers. That is the most usual cork material utility, and then we have basically agglomerates. And here we have the amount of CO2 into different kinds of products. As you can see, the biggest amount of CO2 depends on the amount of cork of each product. So if you have more agglomerated, so you have to mix agglomerate and cork. So if you have more glue and less cork, you will have less CO2 per product. So that's the idea. And at the end, I think that we are here, we have three main aspects. We have to know what is the GHG, the greenhouse gas, what does it mean? You have to know the methodology, the life cycle assessment, the methodology in order to calculate the greenhouse gas emissions for product or services. And then you will see why is important the cork, the sustainability of cork in order to use it in an aeronautical sector. Okay, let's go.
Now, let's talk about potential uses of cork, main properties of cork, and some examples of cork in construction, design, textile, mobility, pharmacy, and cosmetic, and other applications. As it says, cork is the outer bark of cork tree. The physical and mechanical properties of cork are the result of the cellular structure and chemical composition of the cork plant. Cork is an anisotropic material. That means that independent of they have a different shape or different properties. It depends of it is in a radial or axial section. The structural components of cork cells are by order of relevant importance the suberin, then the lignin, then the polysaccharides, and after we can find extractive and inorganic components. Cork has an unusual combination of properties: low density, very low permeability to the liquids and the gases, low conductividity, chemical stability, durability, and high compressibility with a good recovery. The physical, mechanical, and thermal properties of cork can be summarized in 10 points, as you can see. When we think with cork, maybe we think with the stoppers or cork bolts, but there are a lot different things that can be done with cork. And for example, we can find examples in construction or in mobility or even in cosmetics. And there are some example of cork in aerospace, like for example in ablative isolation or covering the vehicles, and in that cases the thermal isolation of cork is exploring. To summarize this part of the chapter, we can conclude that cork is the outer part of cork oak tree. The physical, mechanical, and mechanical properties of cork are the result of the cellular structure and the chemical composition of the plant wall. In order of importance, we can find suberin by the elasticity, lignin by the rigidity, and polysaccharides by the structure. Cork has a unusual combination of properties, and we can find different kind of properties that can be summarized in 10 points. The different types of cork formats exist. Each type of cork format has its properties, and different application can be made with cork. For example, we can find cork in construction, in design, in textile, in mobility, in cosmetics, and even in aerospace.